The Gospel of Mark, chapter 6, verses 45 through 52. Immediately he made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, to Bethsaida, while he dismissed the crowd. And after he had taken leave of them, he went up on the mountain to pray. And when evening came, the boat was out on the sea, and he was alone on the land. And he saw that they were making headway painfully, for the wind was against them. And about the fourth watch of the night, he came to them, walking on the sea. He meant to pass by them. But when they saw him walking on the sea, they thought it was a ghost and cried out, for they all saw him and were terrified. But immediately he spoke to them and said, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." And he got into the boat with them, and the wind ceased, and they were utterly astounded. For they did not understand about the loaves, but their hearts were hardened. So Jesus has done some pretty amazing things over the course of the last couple weeks, as we've looked in the Gospel of Mark and seen how Jesus brings good news to people who are struggling, people whose bodies are hurting, who are hungry, who are fearful, who are enslaved to evil forces. The story of Jesus is a story of remarkable and amazing thing after remarkable and amazing thing. And so we come to a story that's not all that dissimilar from one we already talked about, where Jesus calms a storm, where he is sleeping in a boat and he's able to stop this terrible storm from happening, and all of his followers are really amazed. So what makes this story any different? What makes it stand out in a way that's worth noticing? What I appreciate about this story and the way that the author describes it is the fact that as it's going along, you have the setup of how tired everybody is. They've just done this amazing miracle of feeding 5,000 people. And they're kind of cleaning up, they're finishing up things. They're all, pretty tired. And so Jesus sends the disciples on ahead. He says, "Go on, guys, go ahead without me. I'm going to go take care of some things." And he goes up on the mountain and he prays. And I love seeing how Jesus does this. Jesus, it's kind of like when God rested at the end of creating everything. It's not like he needed to rest because he was tired, but he did it because it's important. It's important for us to see that. And so Jesus, he has all the power in the world. He's done these unbelievable things, and he finishes this miracle, and he decides that he needs to take a little break. And that is just so normal. It's so human. And I don't know about you, but I have been finding rest to be still really difficult in this season. Finding time to settle down, to quiet myself even. Prayer is so important in this time, and that's where Jesus goes when he needs to take a step away, is to just pause and to be with his Father. And I think he does that so that his followers see how valuable and vital and important that is in their own lives. So I don't know, maybe you are feeling like you need rest. Maybe that's an encouragement in today. But I love the way that it frames Jesus watching the disciples, how they're trying to get across this lake. And the whole time, Jesus is up on this mountain and he can see them. He can see what they're trying to do. And he sees how hard they are trying to do it. And he just kind of watches. It's kind of like, it feels a little mean that he leaves them in this process, that it's like they're having to struggle in the middle of the storm. And it's like, it shouldn't take them that long to get across the lake. And yet it is, because they're fighting against this really strong wind. And so Jesus leaves them in that struggle. And when we hear that, it feels kind of bizarre, because it's like, why doesn't he help them? Why doesn't he jump in? Why is he putting them in these circumstances that are causing them some dismay, some stress probably, and maybe they feel alone? Because like the last time they were out on the water and they had a big storm like this, Jesus was with them. And now they're all by themselves. there's almost this sense that they're getting tested. I have this picture in my head of Jesus has already been with them in the storm and demonstrated his incredible power. And now he's taken a step back and they're in a very similar situation. What is their reaction? Where do they go? How do they move in response to this fear that they're probably feeling? And so he lets them in it, but he doesn't abandon them. They have to struggle with this for a time. And they do, and it's hard. I'm sure it was terrifying. And they were probably exhausted from trying to get across this whole time, fighting the ocean, fighting their own ships. And then Jesus just goes out, walks on the water, does something even more amazing than the last time, something that no one should be able to do. And he just does. And they see him coming and they are terrified. Because again, the power of Jesus is beyond their expectations. And in their fear, when he meets their needs in such a real, palpable, and meaningful way, they are rocked to their core that this is the man they've been following. And they still, you get at the very end when he gets in the boat and he's with them. He gets in with them in the middle of their struggle. That even though it might feel like Jesus maybe abandoned them to this trial, he never truly left them. And he gets in the boat in that stormy sea. I think that's an encouragement for us. A reminder that even when Jesus feels far away, in circumstances that are bigger than our understanding, in fears that seem larger than what we can handle, that Jesus does not abandon us, that he is still near, that he loved these friends, these followers of his, and he watched out for them. And again, they're awestruck. They're dumbfounded. These simple fishermen, tax collectors, just guys. They are amazed at this Jesus who suddenly shows up. And you can tell, it even says they didn't understand. The power of Jesus was something beyond their comprehension. And I know for me, the power of Jesus is something that I don't always understand, that I don't always cling to with joy. It's very easy to let the concerns of the world to feel big and scary and to get in the way. So in the storms of our lives, my prayer is that we would not forget the Jesus who was with his friends, even when he seemed far away, who was still rooting for them, and who was with them to save them. May that be a hope that we could find encouragement in as well. That's my prayer for us, and I hope that it can be true for you and for me. I'll see y'all next week.